Welcome to the Encouragement Engineering Podcast, where we combat the negativity that inundates our daily lives with a positive perspective and positive action. Today's guest is Rick Ornelas. Rick is a best-selling author, speaker, and professional coach who empowers and connects others to spread positive change and elevate social impact. With a social sciences and communications degree and over 25 additional years of studying, he's trained over 10,000 hours in communications, sociology, interpersonal relationships, and leadership. He's the author of 12 Hours of Heaven, Lessons for a Better World, and founder of iSpark Change, a global movement and online community of those who are positively impacting the world and bettering humanity. Rick's awakening came in the form of a divine inspiration in an awe-inspiring spiritual connection when he least expected it. He went from isolated and hopeless to writing a best-selling book in under 3 months while envisioning and creating an incredible future. Rick has been dubbed a positive change expert as the iSpark Change community has grown a phenomenal rate of over 800% in just a few months. Rick has been featured on multiple media outlets, including national and international television and radio shows, and he's a regular writer for Lifehack and guest contributor for various websites. So please welcome to the show, Rick Ornelas. Rick, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Hi, Bob. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on Encouragement Engineering, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too. And I think this will be a fun one for a lot of people because just reading your bio, I mean, you got a big background, 25 years of experience of various things. And the key thing is you came from a different spot and you grew, and now, you've got some good stats behind you, some positive stats. But why don't we tell the audience about who you are and how you got to where you are?
So I'm really first and foremost, I'm a family guy. I'm a father, not family guy in the sense of, Peter Griffin, but I'm a family man.
Thanks for clarification.
Yeah, I'm a family man in terms of, my family is everything. And I have my wife, Tanya. We've been married for 25 years, just this past June. And then we have 3 beautiful daughters. And, they're my world. They're the reason why I do everything. They're the reason why I continue to, work on things that I'm working on is, for them and their future. And so that's where it all starts. That's where it all starts for me. And that's, if you look back at me, just where I came from, growing up as the youngest of 5 with 4 older sisters and everything in my family, that's what my parents emphasize with us is that, family comes first, family's everything. That's what's most important for you.
Great.
So that's really the first way I identify. I mean, things on a bio are nice, but as far as that's really my big identifier for myself.
Well, congratulations on the 25 years. I recently passed that myself, so I appreciate
you.
Thanks. We're going on 26 years this October. So
you're almost at 26. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
But yeah, it's a lot it builds that stability, and I think that's a great thing for when you go through what you go through. Tell us a little bit about, it said in your bio about you going from isolated and lonely to writing the book. I mean, what was that process? Because it seems like it's mindset, and tell us about what happened there, because it's more than mindset, it seems like.
Yes, it's really a combination of a lot of things, but the story behind it, Bob, is that last year when at about March timeframe, like March-April timeframe, when the pandemic began and the world shut down and we all go into quarantine and we can't leave our homes and everything. I mean, depending where you are, in the world, but for us in Texas, that's how it was. And as that happens, that was a very uncomfortable place for me, not because of the isolation, because, I can be like introverted and extroverted, and I like the time, and, I'm used to that, and I work from home. So that wasn't that big of a shift, but what was the big shift for me was and you talk about mindset, was the loss of control and the uncertainty of it all. And I'm someone that's used to, having control over my environment, having control over, my situation and what I do on a daily basis. And, I'm outside a lot and I'm going places and stuff like that. So that loss of control and that's what was very uncomfortable for me. And made me anxious. And then the uncertainty of everything, then with that comes the fear of the unknown. What's going to happen? What does tomorrow bring? Right? Are they going to make things worse? Is this going to go on for longer, and all of that? And so I wasn't going through anything any different than anyone else. I mean, everybody was going through the same thing at the same time, which in my opinion, probably compounded things for all of us, because we're all going through that, not just one person, and others can help. You're kind of all in that same boat. And being someone that is a very positive individual, that is, as I said, used to having control of the situation, that was not a place I liked to be in. Right. Like I said, it made me uncomfortable. It did affect my mindset. Right. It did start, playing those tricks on my mindset, that I was so accustomed to. And that's where I realized, like, I need to do something about this. I need to move beyond this quickly, because this is not a place, and when we started to realize after a few weeks, and you start realizing, like, okay, this is going to go on for a while. Like, this is not just going to be over like this, this is going to be months, or, now we know, like, years, or, in that case. But as I thought about that, I'm like, okay, I need to do something. So I decided to write an article, a blog article, on using the time as an opportunity, using COVID as an opportunity, and the quarantine and everything as an opportunity to improve yourself, to help others, to do something that you hadn't done before, that you didn't have time for. And after writing that, it was very well received, and I decided to take my own advice. And there had been this book in my head that had been in my head for 20 years. And I can, explain that in a minute, but it had been in my head for 20 years. And I was thinking, okay, you need to finally share this book, because it's going to help people. It's going to help give them hope. It's going to help inspire people and help them get through the same things that you're going through, that anxiety, that fear, that isolation. You need to help others get through that. And that's when I started writing in April, and then went through that process of writing, through July, when I finished the book, and then moved on to the next phase. But it was really in that writing process where I got a good handle on my mindset. I got in a really good place. I connected spiritually, and the story started flowing out of me, where I felt I was just typing. It was being dictated to me. My writing, flourished, and went from 500 words in a day to over 2,000 in a couple hours. And it just, like, things just started exploding, in a good way. In a good way. And that really helped to bring it back full circle. That really helped to, like, get me ultra clear and ultra focused. So my mindset totally changed to where I was, anxious, isolated, fearful, uncertain. Now I became super focused, ultra creative, very positive, and, extremely spiritual. And it was, like a complete, 180, if you will, from where I had been just a few short months before.
And that's a vital thing for a lot of people to hear is, and you think about the process of writing a book, because you're writing it, whether you're typing on a computer, writing it on a notepad, whatever it may be, you're rereading that, you're writing it, and you're seeing it. So you got the auditory, visual, and the kinesthetic. You got the three most important phases of learning. That's about 87% of learning right there. And you're reiterating that to yourself. So that does change your mind. That will change your mind, because you're seeing it and you're living it, if you will, and your mindset starts to say, wait a second, we can do this. And I think it's real interesting when people write things, how they grow from that. So great job with that, because that's, like you said, that's a hard place to come from, because a lot of people are going through it, but you realize too that something's got to change. There's not just me feeling this way. And I definitely appreciate that. I know that's why I do this podcast, because I like the idea to help people to see that positive perspective, see that we have opportunities out there. Yeah, it may be hard to see them, but once we start looking more, once we start doing more, we get those opportunities, we see those opportunities, and we can take advantage of that. So, and you're an example of that. You did that with a book. So tell us more about the book.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that, Bob. And that's interesting what you talk about, the learning, with the different aspects of learning, right? The kinesthetic and the auditory and the visual and everything, because, and I'll get into the book in explaining this, is because I hadn't thought of that in that way, but each day when I would write, so I'd write in the afternoons. I would start like 2 o'clock and I'd write every afternoon. And each day in the afternoons when I would write, I would read what I had written the day before as a way to, kind of like a first pass.
Right.
I'd go through that and I'd maybe make a couple of changes, but I'd read what I had written the day before. And that would reinforce everything, and that would help me get started for where I'm going, moving forward, right? And an interesting thing about that, so the book is about an angel who is sent down from heaven. His name is Ezra, and Ezra is sent down from heaven, and he finds himself trapped in an elevator with 10 individuals, and they get trapped overnight for 12 hours. That's where the name comes from, 12 hours of heaven. And during the time that they're trapped, he's able to help them through, each of them through the biggest challenge that they're facing in their lives. And in teaching them, helping them work through those challenges, he teaches them each a lesson, and that's the subtitle, Lessons for a Better World.
Right.
And the lessons are they're time-honored things that we can all live by, that have been around for thousands of years, like to love, or to serve others, or to show gratitude. These are things that are not new, but in the story it makes it very relatable to different individuals, because you have 10 completely different people that your various readers going to relate through, depending on who they are. You have the grandma character, and the single young mother, and the veteran, and the businessman, and so there's all these different characters that different people can relate to, and that's helps to secure those lessons. But being that it's I'm writing about the story of an angel helping others, so it's like spiritual, kind of content, if you will. And being that I'm reading that and talking about, loving your neighbor, or showing gratitude. So to your point of, me learning and changing my mindset, I'm reading all of that and writing all of these things. So it's reinforcing all of that in my brain to put me through that transformational process, if you will. And I thank you for sharing it in that manner, because I hadn't really thought about, I thought about, hey, I'm going through this transformation. This is very spiritual. I think this is, a higher power, playing a role in what I'm going through. But I hadn't really thought about like the learning aspect of it, and what I was actually going through in the process of that, how that related to everything. So that's really cool.
Great. Glad I could help.
Yeah, thank you.
But it sounded like you got a lot bigger help, if you will, and that's part of the question I have. I mean, for better society, better life, and 12 hours in heaven. That, I mean, think about that scenario, because you always hear about, what happens in the afterlife for people that have near-death experiences and how peaceful it is. Imagine having 12 hours of that peacefulness, and that, if you will, that just inspiring wisdom with you for 12 hours. Wow, that would be cool. I got to get a copy of that book. So I'm definitely going to be getting on the website and getting a copy of that. But do you think this helped your faith, or did you already have a strong faith? I mean, how did that play into this scenario?
Well, I absolutely think it did help my faith, Bob, and to really explain how it helped my faith, I need to take you back to where the idea for the book first came from. Right. Okay, so and a lot of people, when they first read the title, they think of, did you die, and
right.
were you in heaven, or right? Did you go up to heaven and were there for 12 hours or something like that? And not in that sense, because it is a fictional story. What it's inspired by is, as I said, I had this story in my head for 20 years. And what it's inspired by is that 20 years ago, when I was, as I said, my family is everything. So I was a young father. My wife and I had been married for a few years. We had 2 young daughters at the time. My youngest wasn't born yet. So my daughters were like 1 and 4. And at the time we were living in Southern California, and we were driving home on a Sunday late afternoon from a birthday party. And we're driving home, and it starts to rain really hard. and the roads are really, we're on the freeway, and the roads, you see cars had pulled over because you can't really, the wipers can't really clear fast enough. And in California, that's not common, right? Where I'm from now in Texas, it's commonplace, right? Or in Florida, rains all the time. But in there, it wasn't super common. So we contemplate pulling over, but it was getting dark, and so my wife's like, we really should get home, because then it's going to be worse. And it was a Sunday and late, so we continue on very cautiously. Well, I'm in the slow lane, and I hit a big puddle, and we start hydroplaning, and I lose control. And so we start spinning out of control, just spinning, and we spin across 4 lanes of the freeway.
Wow.
And we're about to hit the center divider, and I'm trying to steer, and my wife and I are screaming, and we don't know what's going on, and I'm trying to steer and brake, and that doesn't really work when you're on hydroplane. But in some way, we don't hit the center divider, and we continue to spin back the other direction across the 4 lanes the other way, and we don't hit any cars or anything. And we go off the freeway up a dirt embankment. It's like a slanted dirt embankment. We hit a brick wall, and we flip over, and we land on the wheels, and we land back on the wheels. And the windshield is smashed down to here, and it's all shattered, and the glass on the right side is all shattered, and the car's filled with glass and dirt. And I checked my wife, and she's okay. And my daughters had been asleep, and they had woken up, and they seemed fine. And we crawl out of the car on my side, and a car with an elderly couple had pulled over, and the lady wraps a blanket around my wife, and it's pouring rain, and she's sitting there on the side of the road. And the gentleman, he tells me they had called 911. And he says, he's like, I can't believe you got out of the car. That's the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed in my life. And he's like, I thought you'd for sure, be injured or dead. And, I called 911 and everything. And, I was like, well, was it really that bad? Was it really all that bad? And then the next day, you look at the car, and you're like, well, it looks pretty bad. Yeah. And then the next day I went to the impound place, because we had things in the car we had to pick up, and they towed the car off. And as I get dropped off there, my car is still sitting on a flatbed in front of the office.
Wow.
And I go inside to the office, and I tell the attendant, I say, yes, I'd like to get my things out of the car outside. And he's like, which car? And I go, the one on the flatbed, the black Grand Prix on the flatbed. And he says to me, he's like, that's not your car. And I'm like, yeah, that's my car. And he goes, no, whoever was driving that is either dead or in the hospital. And I was like, I kind of looked at him kind of strangely. And he says, no, I can always tell by the car, like what it looks like. I know what it looks like when they bring the cars, like they, can always tell, right? I don't know if it's some game he played with himself or something that he, would figure that out. But it really caused me to reflect, right? And to think like, okay, what really happened here? Were we, and then people are like, oh, you're definitely like something protected you. My mom was like, your guardian angel was looking out for you. And that's why I did a lot of reflecting and thinking on it. Like, okay, because I was a young guy, right? You're young.
Yeah. Nothing can be
macho.
me.
Like, no, it wasn't that big of a deal. Yeah, we all worked out fine, everything. But then when everybody's telling you, you're like, okay, maybe I need to think about this, right? And as I was, going through reflection for, a month or two, I wrote down a list of ways that I wanted to live my life and change my life and improve my life. And that really helped set the foundation for, to go to your original question, for my faith growing over the years, and then, really growing in the past year. And I can explain that. But as far as the story, the impact was, I'm sitting in my car one day, and my mom had given me a little angel pin to put in the visor of my new car to protect us. And one day I'm sitting there kind of daydreaming, and then all of a sudden the story that would become my book hits me instantly, like I had watched a movie. Like I was like, oh, and I have this story in my head.
Yeah.
And I didn't write it at that time. I wrote like a page and then never did anything with it. And then last year, I found that same little list that I had written, what I called a to-do list for every day, where it said things like, be grateful, treat others with respect, don't be hurtful, don't be wasteful. I found that little list in the bottom of a tray in my drawer, where the pencils and things.
Yeah.
I found that underneath there, and that's where it became a real foundation for the book, for those lessons for the better world. And that's why, in last year and going through that whole journey of writing, that's where I think my faith really grew leaps and bounds,
Right.
leaps and bounds. It had been growing over the years, and I think that I didn't write the book 20 years ago because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready as a human being. I wasn't ready in terms of my faith. I wasn't ready in terms of where I was as probably in God's eyes. And then, it wasn't until last year that it was like, okay, now you're ready. Now you can write this.
Wow. That's a great inspiration. Just a note for people, things don't happen overnight. As a book writer myself, I've done that. I start a chapter and what I start is a table of contents, and I'll arrange that, rearrange it, and just to make sure I have the right ideas, and then go from there. But it's not something that just all of a sudden things start spewing out. In your case, it was, like you said, until you're ready for the teacher, you'll appear, the student will appear. Mm-hmm. And 20 years later, all of a sudden you're there. So that's great. You grew that way. It's harsh that it had to happen that way, but you're very lucky, and thank God for keeping you around to be able to write this story. So that's great. And that's, I guess, another thing too, to help. I mean, you started your I Spark Change group. That's a, coming out of the pandemic and what you went through, it's great because a spark is a catalyst, and that catalyst starts, the fires. You guys are, out in California, they've experienced a lot of those out there this year. And that's something that we need in our world, is that fire of positivity, that fire of encouragement. How's that group going? And tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Yes, thank you for asking, because that's really been my passion since I finished the book. Obviously, that's passion too. But as I was writing, as I was going through that spiritual awakening, and really the writing started to flourish. As I said, I was super focused and super creative, and there was a period of about 4 or 5 weeks in there, from like June to July when I finished, where, as I was saying, the writing flourished, and the creativity was so high that I was waking up at all hours of the night with ideas and dreams and vision. I was having dreams and visions throughout the day, and all these things, and that's where the idea for I Spark Change was born. And it's actually something that as it was born at that time, I wove it into the story. So the having the spark, like you say, of that catalyst is woven into the story as well. And as I was writing, I kept hearing inside that I needed to do more than just write a book.
Right.
And I don't say just write a book to belittle anyone that writes a book, because it's a fabulous accomplishment. But I felt I was being told to do more, that I was being told to, okay, you're going to write a book, and that's going to serve its purpose. And yes, it will inspire people and give them hope and do what you want. But beyond that, you need to do more. You need to do more to help impact the world. And that's when the idea for I Spark Change was born. And so after the book was published, so the book came out on October 10th. And right around the same time, September, October, is when I created I Spark Change. And I created just a web page and then a community on Facebook, and then started the process of growing that community and growing that movement of people that spread positive change, like yourself, people that spread positive change, and that want to increase that social impact that they have. And a big aspect of I Spark Change is empowering individuals to spark change in their lives and to spread positivity, because so many people out there, myself included, prior to doing this, feel that I'm too small. what can I do? I'm just one individual. What impact can I have on the world, right? That's too big. That's too big. Maybe I can help out. Maybe I can volunteer over here, or maybe I can give some money to charity here, or maybe I treat my neighbor with respect, or whatever it is. Those little things, and believe that doesn't have an impact, right? And what I'm trying to show people through I Spark Change is that all of those things that I mentioned, and far more, the list is really endless, do have a ripple effect that spreads throughout the world. And what happens is that most of the time we just don't see it, right? Like we just don't see it. So let's say, for example, it's kind of a popular thing these days. Sometimes people will like pay it forward in the drive-through. They're at Starbucks or something, they pay it forward, and then you go off, right? And you leave. So you never see the result of that outcome usually, right? I mean, maybe sometimes, but oftentimes you don't know. So you don't know. But it's just having the belief that any single little action can have that ripple effect that is going to improve our world. And when people make a conscious effort to make that a part of their daily life, to spread that positive change in their daily life, that's how the world's going to change. And that's how we're going to make the world a better place. It just has to start with those small actions from each individual.
Those are some great examples because it doesn't take a lot. I mean, we can smile and change somebody's day. Yeah, you may not know it, but somebody can be having a bad day and just a simple smile. Wow, thank you. And or simple manners. It's incredible what they do. And like you said, you've got to remember that no matter what people are going through, those are things that we can do for ourselves that will, help not only ourselves, but to others. You hold the door open for somebody, they could be tired, they could be worn down, and that just enlightens them and helps them smile. And then they give that smile to somebody else and give you a smile back. It doesn't have to cost a lot. It's a great.
Those are all examples that I use, Bob. I didn't mean to cut you off, but those are all examples that I use. Everything you said, I've used before with others because they're all perfect. And they all, they're not a lot.
No, and it's funny because you mentioned the drive-through pay it forward thing. I did that one time with my son in the car, and I wasn't so worried about how I was going to affect the person behind me. I just wanted him to see that and see the value of that. And he's like, what? He didn't quite understand it. And then I explained it further. I said, watch behind him. And he said, oh, and then he got it. And then, okay, maybe he'll take that into the future and he'll be able to do it, And so that's fun with kids to be able to do that type of thing because they see it and they experience it and they, get that built into their soul as well. So,
absolutely.
Great examples there for things. With all this, in helping people to, if you will, focus on a better society, a better way of life, do you think do you help people to see a better vision?
Yeah, that is really the goal with I Spark Change. So that initial spark, if you will, that initial start of the smile, the paying it forward, that's just the beginning. Because what happens is it's really kind of twofold. What happens is once you change that behavior for yourself, then yes, there's that ripple effect that affects everyone else. But the biggest impact is on you. The biggest impact is on you because you're becoming a better person and you're showing up better for others and in the world, and you become changed from the inside. And I witnessed that transformation in myself, right? And I've seen it happen in others. So that's the first part. And then the second part is that like you said, it inspires others to do the same, right? And what I'm looking for with I Spark Change is I'm looking for, kind of that pay it forward mentality that people, they want to start doing these things for others. They want to, oh, I got to smile. I better smile back, kind of law of reciprocity type thing. And the goal for I Spark Change. So the goal as we're building our community, our online community, our goal is to keep growing this online community to where we can evolve it in the next few years into a social media platform where we are truly connecting people from all over the world, where we're connecting people from all over the world with that vision of making the world a better place, where we connect an individual on one side of the world that, let's say here where you are in Florida, there's a group that's working on something, and they need the knowledge. So let's just use the example that they need an engineer's knowledge, right? They need the knowledge of an engineer, and they put out something in the group, in the iSpark Change group. Hey, we're working on this. We're looking for some questions to be answered. And an engineer on the other side of the world, someone in Germany sees that, and he's like, oh, I'm interested in what they're doing. Let me help them. And he helps them, and creating this global network of people that are supporting one another,
Right.
that are helping one another in different causes, in different areas, with different, charitable endeavors, and where you're matched up with what your interests are, and it'll show you different things that, along those lines of interest. So if you say, hey, I'm interested in humanitarian efforts, then, you see things from all over the world that might interest you, humanitarian wise, and where you can support those by, just liking them, or support them by giving them your knowledge, or support them by, various ways. And I want to truly create that global network. And our vision, our goal for iSpark Change is to have 1 billion people that are part of this group. The 1 billion people, including organizations and groups and clubs and nonprofits and companies, that it includes 1 billion strong, that are all supporting one another. And in doing so, I think we'll have a pretty significant impact on the world.
I think so. I mean, wow, 1 billion people to support each other. Like, wow, that's cool. And the best part is, guess what? We all bleed red. It doesn't matter where you live, your language, your skin color. We all bleed red. We all want good things for our family. We all want to be safe and grow. And that's a great way to share that with people, is because you mentioned the engineering question. It's funny because sometimes there's just that one question you need answered, and you don't want to have to call technical support or go through professional organization, et cetera. Maybe somebody can just answer it in 5 minutes. That's a great example of that, because that's what it's about. I mean, there's no way to know everything, and a lot of other people know a lot of things, and they can help very easily. So great job.
Yeah, and that'll just be one component, right? Is people offering services for, donating services, or their time, or resources, or whatever it is. I mean, the sky's really the limit, but it's just about supporting your fellow humans.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? That's a great concept. And a lot of times I think we overlook, because we're a microwave society, a crock pot world, and we always go 900 miles a minute, 20 different directions. Slow down a second and listen to somebody. I mean, take that time to really listen, I think is critical for a lot of people, just to hear them, and even reading some of their scenarios. I look forward to reading your book just because of the idea of 12 hours of focused attention. That's cool. I'm really looking forward to that. So Rick, where can people find out more about you, your book? Tell us those sites and so forth, so we make sure they get that information.
Well, thank you for asking, Bob. And 12 Hours of Heaven, it's on Amazon. It's on Ingram Spark and Google Play and all the different websites. It's Kindle and paperback version, so they can find it in those different platforms. If they just search 12 Hours of Heaven, Lessons for a Better World, it'll pop up, or even just 12 Hours of Heaven, or my name, Rick Ornelas, it should pop up. And then as far as iSpark Change, it's just the letter I, Spark Change, across all different platforms. So there's our website, which is www.isparkchange.com. There's our Facebook group, which is iSpark Change, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube channel. So just by searching iSpark Change, they'll find Facebook community, they'll find the organizational page. And by joining iSpark Change, and they can join the Facebook group, or follow us on Instagram, or join the website. Any of those ways, they'll see daily motivational content, inspirational content, spiritual content. They'll see just ways to make the world a better place. And we're a few weeks away from launching a totally redesigned website. So as I said, when I was getting my book published, and I just got a site up there to represent what Iceberg Change was about. And so, it's simple, but we're totally relaunching that it'll have, social impact questionnaires and different things to help gauge where people are at in their level of impacting the world, and different videos and things. So I'm really looking forward to that in the next few weeks. But if they just look up iSpark Change, they'll find us.
Great. Yeah. And that's another thing to remind people of. Get out there, and even if you're not totally sure of starting, put something out there. Like you said, you started out with a simple web page. Get it out there so people can start to see what you're doing. It's another great example for people. And, I really look forward to reading the book. And if you check out his website, he does have some of his interviews on there. I like the one you did with the group in Australia. You mentioned it took you 5 days. It was like planes, trains, and automobiles to get this interview done. So yes. Great job with that.
Yes, that was definitely a story, and people can go to the website and check it out like you saw it. But that was that took a while with Ticker News in Australia. They're good guys over there. I've done a couple spots with them, and enjoyed them both times.
Great. Oh, excuse me, Rick. I want to thank you for taking the time today to be a guest on the Encouragement Engineering podcast. I really appreciate it. I look forward to hearing more of what you're doing, and definitely if you get the chance, people go out there, check out his book, check out iSpark, iSparkChange.com. It's a great website. Looking forward to getting on the Facebook group as well. I want to do that as well. So Rick, thanks again for being a guest. I really appreciate your insight and what you're doing. So great job.
Thank you very much, Bob. It's been a pleasure, and I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.